So it's Christmas Eve here in New Zealand, and SANZAAR have given us a gift. SANZAAR boss Andy Marinos has been interviewed by the Herald. I'll put the story in the description. Fingers crossed I remember to do that. Just talking about the future of Super Rugby, a bit about the format, and a few other points as well. In terms of the format, there has been talk, and I've done a video about it before, about potentially the Sunwolves getting the chop if they move to a 14 team structure. And that point, see, it's hard to tell from the article. It seems like it was the Herald driving it because it's their interview with him. But that point about the Sunwolves potentially getting axed is definitely there. But yeah, apparently the Herald are saying that Marinos, the boss of SANZAAR, has all but confirmed that there will be a change in the format because the crowd attendance is still poor, the viewership numbers are still not great, and yeah, they need to make changes by March because I think 2021 is when the deal needs to tick over till the new deal, so they need to have everything in place by that point. So the conversations with the broadcasters and whoever, that all needs to happen in 2019, so all their cards are on the table, paperwork gets signed off, so that by the time players are actually running out on the field, all that stuff is kind of in the can. Yeah, he didn't really confirm anything, Marinos, when he was interviewed by the Herald. He just said, you know, expansion is off the table, that they're looking at some engagement with broadcasters over the course of 2019. If there are going to be any changes to the competition structure, we need to know what that's going to look like. So yeah, they need to make the decision early next year. Speaking of expansion, because there was a bid, I believe, for a Fiji-based team, but they couldn't come up with the funds. And he says, in terms of a Pacific Island team, they've done feasibility studies around putting teams in North America and the Pacific Islands. And we've seen the metrics aren't really stacking up for us at this point, blah, blah, blah. So no, the money's not in it at the moment, but we'll keep looking at it in future, what he goes on to say. They're still going to engage these markets in the form of regular season games and preseason friendlies. So, for example, the Chiefs are playing one game in Fiji, 2019. Not exactly the same as having a team based in the Pacific, is it? But he's saying it's all we can do for now. He also says, yeah, expansion at the moment economically doesn't fit, because you know, the teams that come in need to be able to support themselves financially. They can't just rely on the existing partners to kind of prop them up. And he's saying those markets need to be able to pay for themselves, and we could not such that we can continue to strategically invest in new markets. So we even got money to prop up new teams. They need to come in with the coin ready to go, otherwise it's not going to happen. They also point to the fact that if they are going to expand Super Rugby, they would need to do it smarter, because when they did it with the Sunwolves, and they acknowledge this here, that, or at least the Herald does, that they went into Japan without striking an agreement with the Japanese Rugby Union. They just set up a team and then kind of decided how to do it from there. They were so keen to get a team in Japan, they just did it quickly, and the results haven't been great because of a variety of factors, but yeah, they seem to be finally getting some engagement from the Japanese Rugby Union now to give the Sunwolves more chance of success. But speaking of the Sunwolves, they brought it up, as I said, it may have been the Herald driving it, but they talked about the fact that the Sunwolves are there. They don't talk about the economic factor. They talked about to help improve the Japanese national team. And Marinos, when asked about it, he seems to question whether having a team in Super Rugby is the best for the Japanese national team, because he says, is having one team in Super Rugby the best vehicle, or is it working with the Japanese Rugby Union, blah, 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 with their professional domestic competition structure? So is it better to have one Super Rugby team, or just work with the top league to make sure that is the vehicle for advancing Japanese rugby? He also says it's also about getting the mix right, so you get enough Japanese players playing week in, week out, rather than putting a lot of foreigners in there and getting the results you need in the Super Rugby context. So You got a Super Rugby team, if it's full of foreigners, to make them a winning team. Is that worth it for Japanese rugby? Probably not, is what he's saying. If you have a Super Rugby team full of Japanese players and they're losing, that doesn't work for Super Rugby because they're a losing team. So he's saying we got to get that balance right. That kind of makes sense. Might be a topic for a video at some point about non-Japanese involvement with that Sunwolves team. Have to think about it. But yeah, they're talking about the format as well, about how it might work. They're talking about round robin. That seems to be the desired structure that a lot of people would like to see it go back to. I mean, the main thing about round robin is it's just simple and anybody can kind of follow it, but they said it wouldn't be a straightforward round robin. It would have to be some kind of modified round robin. It would reduce the number of local derbies, but overall it might be beneficial to have the round robin instead of just the derbies. You still get to play each team, so he also says they need to increase the competitiveness to get the integrity back, and certainly a round robin format would deliver that. So he's already putting his foot, without confirming anything, very much like a politician. He's kind of giving hints at all these things. So he is seemingly hinting that the Sunwolves may not be the best thing for Japanese rugby. Hinting that, well, he's definitively saying that the Pacific team and any American teams, incidentally, can't work for the moment, so no expansion. He's hinting that there's going to be changes to the format, probably round robin. And lastly, when asked about the South African teams possibly heading to Europe, and South African guys will have to tell me whether what he says here rings true to you. He says that the South Africa teams are better off in Super Rugby. It's better for South African rugby because... he says, I'm not personally convinced that all the South African teams playing in the Pro 14 is going to give the players the same week in, week out competitiveness as they are used to. So he's saying Super Rugby is a better, higher level competition, I suppose. More competition in that competition is what he's saying. The challenge Super Rugby gives you, it prepares the players so much better for international competition, because Test rugby is not always about playing games at home. I'm not sure I follow that one quite so much. I guess he's just saying that the South African teams have to spend a lot of time on the road, and that helps prepare players for Test rugby, because when you play Test, you often play them away from home. So, interesting. Is Super Rugby week in, week out more competitive than the Pro 14? We've certainly got some good teams in Super Rugby. We also have some teams that are pretty lackluster. Same with the Pro 14. We all want to see Leinster up against the Crusaders, but it's not going to happen. So it's hard to say where the strength really lies. But yeah, it's an interesting one. As I said, right before Christmas Eve here, and read that news. So I thought kind of moves that story forward about what's going to happen with Super Rugby going forward. It is something we're going to be watching down here in the Southern Hemisphere to see if there are going to be any changes. If we're reading into what that is, he wants South Africa to stay. Sunwolves might be on the way out. Round robin is the format, and still no Pacific team. But yeah, I don't think any of that's too shocking as yet. I guess we'll wait and see to see how the situation kind of develops. You guys let me know your thoughts. Do you think what he's saying rings true to you, or do you think that, yeah, there might be a bit of, I want to say, bollocks being spoken? SANZAAR is notoriously not the best organisation for running things, so we'll see if they can get it right this time. I will say, just for mine, chopping and changing also I don't think helps. How many times are they going to keep chopping and changing the competition before they finally settle down? I suppose it's like that coach who just changes the team week in, week out because they keep losing. But sometimes what you need is a bit of consistency before the guys can get going. Maybe viewers, if you gave them a few years to get used to it, would get into the competition again before you suddenly chop and change it again. Or is it so bad in its current format that you just have to do something again because it's just not going? I don't know. I felt 2018 was better than 2017 in terms of the rugby, but hey, that's just me. You guys let me know your thoughts. I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.